So this morning I was checking out Facebook, and there was this farmer not very far away who was selling cobs of corn, 12 cobs for $5, and I needed to can corn anyway. So I thought, oh, why not? Might as well go get some corn and get it canned. So last year when I did corn, I piecemealed them. I did a dozen cobs at a time, and I sort of lost track of how many dozen I bought. And so this time I bought 4 dozen, and I have 24 cobs in the canner now, and I still have these cobs to get into the canner. So, anyway, I'm going to show you how I do this. So you start off by going out and you're buying yourself your corn. You determine how much corn you figure you're going to need for the year. And then you come home, well, and you don't have to buy it all at the same time. Take a lesson on my book. I should have made 2 trips to the farm instead of just one, because then I wouldn't have this corn where I'm going, holy shit, I got way too much corn. But I can freeze what I don't can. So you take and you peel all the husks off of it. When you're buying corn, if you're going out to the field like I did, there is the silk on the top of the jars, or top of the cobs. We fish the silk out here and I'll show you. So this is what you're looking at when you got the corn's in the field. And you're looking at this here, this silk. If this silk is all dried up to the top of the cob of corn, then 99.9% of the time, that cob of corn is going to look like this. It's a full cob of corn. Now, if it's still got some green on it, so it's not quite all died off, it's sort of like this still, that means the cobs are still developing. And that's what I've got here. That's these cobs here. They haven't finished developing yet. Now, this one the silk was all dead on it, but the corn is getting, it's a case of harvest now or lose it. So I harvested it, and mostly to have a look to see what I had. Give me a second here, guys. Right, so the reason I had to leave was because I also have the canner, the pressure cooker on the stove, and it's up at the 10 pounds pressure, and I just have to babysit it a little bit. So, anyway, you got your cobs all peeled, like what's in the bucket, and then you take and you cut the cob, or cut the kernels off the cob. Whoop. Works if the bowl's a little closer. Okay, and you do that all the way around. Now, when you're cutting it off, I'll show you here in a second. Okay, so when you're cutting the kernels off, this is where you want to be. You want to have sort of like a bit of the white still showing, and that then that's what I just cut off. So it's not got the whole peak on it, but it's almost got the peak on it. Here's some more of it. Now, if there's canners out there, people who do this other than me, there's probably other ways to do stuff, but this is how I do it. And if you are a first-time canner, get yourself a book, or get yourself a book is the best thing. Fall, Bernard and Kerr, they all have books out for canning, and it allows it to be the right way of doing it. Most people that you talk to have their own way of doing their canning, and then you're going to get the newbies that go, this is the way it has to be done. Yeah, it does. It's supposed to be, but you'll learn what you can and you can't do. Now, when you have cobs, when you're peeling the husk off them, I've got some here someplace, you'll squish a kernel occasionally. Now, when you squish the kernel, it develops a brown spot on the cob, and I can't seem to find one. Okay, so here's where I bruised it, and you can see the brown starting right here. I bruised that cob, picking out, I don't know what it was, but anyway, I picked it out because I didn't want it in my corn. So, and it turns brown because of the starch that's in it. Corn has got a high starch content in it. Okay, now corn needs to be processed for 55 minutes once the pressure cooker reaches 10 pounds. So it's going to be cooking while we do this here. So then you just take and you fill up your jars. And I have 18 jars that I'm going to fill up. Now these are the small jars, because sometimes we don't need a pint. We just need enough for 2 people. We don't need enough for 4. So you fill them up just right to here, and then we're going to add some salt. Be a quarter of a teaspoon salt we'll add to it, and we'll fill it up with hot water. Now, the reason I'm shaking it is because the corn will compact down, so that you actually do get more cobs in it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a whole bunch of floating corn, and water in the bottom, corn on top. So, and when I was talking to you guys a minute ago, my pressure cooker's temperature got a little too high. So I now have to stand in the kitchen and babysit it, because if I turn it down too fast, it's going to suck the liquid out of my jars. So anyway, I'm going to keep filling up these jars. And when the pressure cooker is, well, actually maybe when I'll bring you back for filling up the jars. Putting the lids and rings on them, put the salt and water. So remember, if you watched the beet video, I had mentioned to you that when you're wiping the jars, the top of the jars, you're checking to make sure that everything is off the top so it seals properly. You also are going to check for any flaws in the top of it that will prevent. Now this jar here, right here, has got a chip in it. Let's see if we can, okay. So right there is a chip in the jar. And so I have to swap it out. I was wiping the jars down waiting for my water to boil because I got sidetracked. And so now I have to take and swap out my jars. Just discard the jar, or if you have something other purpose for them, that's great. Otherwise, just get rid of the jar, because otherwise you're going to hopefully find it again at some point in the future before you end up processing it and having a not seal. Now when I can, I don't use iodized salt at all. I use pickling salt. And some people are probably going to say, oh, that's not what you're supposed to use. I don't care. I've always used it because it has no additives or anything in it. so I just use the pickling salt. You can see it's right here. Windsor pickling salt contains no additives. And I like that. I don't want to have, the reason for canning is so I know what my ingredients are that are in my jars. And if I'm using additives in my salt even, then I don't know what's in my jars anymore. So I'm adding a quarter of a teaspoon, no, an eighth of a teaspoon of salt to the jars. And salt is something that is your choice. It enhances the flavor a little bit more. It's just like cooking with salt. If you don't have to use it if you don't want to. Alright, now we have to wait for the water to boil. Other than that, we'll just watch the pot. And a watched pot never boils. Okay, so my water finally boiled. It took freaking forever, but it finally did boil. So now you just take and you fill up the jars with hot water. Alright, I'll bring you back when I take the pressure cooker jars out. And it's got another 15 minutes, so I'll see you in 15 minutes. Okay, I brought you back a little earlier. Now I'm going to put these lids on top of my jars because I've wiped them all off. Now, one of the things that you guys need to keep in mind, all your high starch products, i.e. corn or peas, you need to make sure your water covers the product. If you don't, what happens with corn, specifically, I rarely ever can peas, but what happens with corn specifically is the top corn that's exposed to, that's under the water, will turn a gray. And the corn itself is not bad, it just looks not good. So try and keep your product down far enough that you can bring the water up to this part right here, right where the bottom of the ring will go. See, you'll see where I'm going to put the ring on. So it stays right below that. Your product stays here and your water just comes to below, just right on that mark. Otherwise, like I said, what happens is your corn will turn a grayish color. And there's nothing wrong with corn, it just doesn't look that great. I had a bunch of it do it here not that long ago. Well, actually last year when I canned it. And I'm looking at it and going like, why is it doing that? And I did some checking on it, and that's why. It's because of the starch content in the corn. Now, a lot of my jars, I got my jars secondhand, and with them came the rings. So some of my rings are starting to get a little old. I threw a lot of them out when I canned the beets, but I don't have enough rings, because most people, when they get rid of the jars, I don't know what they do with the rings, but very rarely do the rings come with the jars. So I have to keep them for this year, because otherwise I'm not going to have enough rings. So once the canning, like I have a batch of pints in the pressure cooker right now. Once it's done, and it's cold, I will take the rings off of that and store them. Alright, so those jars are all ready for the pressure cooker. Now we just have to wait for the pressure cooker to be finished. Okay, so the pressure cooker's finished, and now I'm just going to take the jars out. I have my towel set up. Remember, if you have liquid on the top of the jars, if you want that off, tip the jar away from you, because to have it, tip it towards you, if the jar happens to come apart, then you're going to have liquid spouting at you. Get yourself a set of tongs if you don't have them, and make sure that you use those tongs, because I have been in situations where I haven't had them with me, and it's terrible job trying to get jars moved from point A to point B without it. There's my divider. There's one that's got a little bit of water in it. So I had mentioned that I would probably do the rest of the corn, freeze the rest of the corn. I forgot, I have a dehydrator. And to freeze the corn isn't going to solve my problems, because I need to get the freezer emptied. Cause I have, oh my goodness, this is a little tall for me. Ugh. Putting these in here. I'm standing on tippy toes in order to get this. Let's get these jars in here. Ooh, get over there. Two, 4, 6, 8. Got 10 jars in the bottom layer of these half pints. And same rules apply. Put a divider between them. Alright, I'm going to set this pressure cooker back up again, and that's it. That's it for canning corn. We now have 3, 6, 9, 12, 18 pints of fresh corn done. Hope you guys have an awesome time. Give it a try. Get yourself a canning book. Follow the canning book. Practice makes perfect. This corn, these 18 pints of corn and 20 half pints of corn, and I have enough to do another 18 pints of corn, cost me 20 bucks. Jars, buy them on, get them from garage sales, or people advertise them on Marketplace. I bought 450 jars for 70 bucks. Like, that's a lot of jars. They didn't come with lids and rings. Again, that's why I take my rings off, because I need to keep them for the next batch. I also bought 1 cup jars, like the half pints. For 20 bucks, I got 12 dozen half pints for 20 bucks. Like, keep an eye out for it. Then all you have to do is you buy your product, process it. Vegetables pretty well have to be done on a canner in a pressure cooker, unless they are pickles. The beauty to a pressure cooker also is if I water bath these, which is the old way of canning, was water bathing, which means you put it in that pot and you cover them with an inch of water and then you boil them for 4 hours. That's a lot of heat, a lot of electricity, and a lot of work to get this when I have it in the pressure cooker for 55 minutes. So it's not even an hour long. It takes me an hour and a half to get this all ready. Put it in the cooker. Hour and a half start to finish. Anyway, give it a try. Feel free to leave me a comment or whatever. My way is not your way. Get yourself a book. Get yourself the supplies. Give it a try. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.